This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is a video I really don't even need a script for. This is the 5 things that frustrate me about this Browns team. And you know, what's interesting about this team, to talk about the things that I love about this team, I don't need a script. To talk about the things that frustrate me about this team, I don't need a script. There's been no shortage of either. Okay, this team has done plenty to frustrate us over the last part of the season, the first 6 weeks of the season. They've done a lot to make us happy. I think this has been a roller coaster ride of a team. And we'll just get into the frustrating parts about this team. And look, we all know it probably is going to be number one, but we'll start with other stuff about the team. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the unnecessary secrecy around the team. And it's not just the Browns that do this. It's a league-wide thing. You'll see this on other teams. And honestly, I don't think Browns fans are aware of how much worse it gets outside of Cleveland. Not an excuse for what Cleveland does. I think this is a trend that needs to stop league-wide, because I think it's making the environment to be an NFL fan a lot less enjoyable, because teams are not being transparent. And in the lack of transparency, you get conspiracy. And now if you're just a regular fan trying to figure out what's going on, you get inundated with conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory when you just want to find out who about to be on IR. The lack of transparency that the NFL teams have exhibited has been awful. The Browns aren't the biggest violator of this, but it's not good for the Browns either. And if you want to know how bad it gets around the league, Baltimore is notoriously secretive about everything. The people I know that cover the Baltimore Ravens, very frustrated with how that team gets down. They don't even let you record practices that are open to the public. If you go to the practice and it's open to the public, they don't let you record it. If you're a fan, they'll take your phone, like as if you're sharing state secrets while they're doing one-on-one wide receiver drills. Like, it's goofy. And I know that some fans will buy into this kind of, like, we'll call it censorship or lockdown nature of the team because they think it makes the team win, but it doesn't. It's just unnecessary secrecy. Another team that's notorious about it is Pittsburgh. They won't even let you describe certain things. Like, forget video. You already can't do video. You can't even describe the practices outside of the basic stuff, which is ridiculous. It's bad around the league. Every team has it. The Philadelphia Eagles are notoriously locked down. Like, a lot of teams shut down the transparency to the media. And look, I know people have their frustrations with the local media and the national media, myself included, but teams not being transparent only aids that issue, only creates more frustration than it prevents. Because if teams were more transparent, we wouldn't have to speculate as much. There would be less conspiracy out there, and people can just know. Case in point with the Cleveland Browns. Why in the world was this Deshaun Watson thing a secret? Now, I understand the first week was handled how it was handled, right? You didn't know it was a micro tear until Saturday. You found out it was a micro tear. Okay. Monday, we should have probably gotten that information, but instead it took 2 weeks after that Monday for Browns fans to get that information. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, who does this information hurt to be out there? So now people are either going to take that at face value, or they're going to ask a question that is an important question to ask. Like, hey, if this is really what happened, why did you wait 2 weeks to tell us? That don't make any sense. This didn't protect anything to not tell us. So why did you wait 2 weeks to tell us? And the truth is, they probably were just being secretive for no reason, just being stubborn. But the truth ain't going to sell when you've had this much mystery out there. And now people are going to be like, oh, are they hiding something? I don't know. It don't make sense. And then with the lack of transparency, you create conspiracy. If you tell people there's a dark room that people go in and nobody knows what happens, people go imagine all kind of wild shit. It could be a bathroom for all we know, but people are going to imagine all kind of wild stuff. But if you let them know it's a bathroom, then people ain't going to think all kind of wild. That was a terrible analogy, but you know what I'm getting at. If people have a general idea of what's going on, then you're not going to have this crazy stuff that happened with the Deshaun Watson situation. But since you had all this mystery around it, all people can do is speculate. And when people speculate, somebody thinks this, and then somebody builds on top of this crazy idea. And then we get here, and then next thing we know, he out for the year, his nerve damage, he Markelle Fultz, right? Like, that's how we get here. Transparency, not just a note for the Cleveland Browns, a note for the entire NFL. If you want this game to be able to be passed on, you have to have people who aren't going to be tired of the way that the game is reported on. And if you want that to get better, you just have to be more transparent. Because this right here, it's a silent killer. How they're handling it, it gives you no competitive advantage as a team. I don't want to hear any competitive advantage arguments. It doesn't give you a competitive advantage to withhold not critical to game day information, right? I understand you don't want to tell us the script. I understand you don't want to tell us what kind of formations you think you're going to crack out for Sunday. I understand if you don't want to tell me what type of personnel packages or what kind of defensive adjustments. Like, okay, cool. You can keep all that a secret. Don't nobody really ask questions about that, because it's not like you got football people in there asking football questions at these press conferences. You have people from the news asking news questions at these press conferences. So it's not like that information's even at risk. People just want to know who's healthy, who not going to be healthy, who might be healthy, who going through what, why can't they play? That's all people want to know, and there's no reason you can't give them that. A team like the 49ers or whoever you play, the Seahawks, they're not sweating their bridges because Deshaun might or might not play. They don't care. Like, they're just preparing for the team. It ain't that different to adjust to having PJ Walker out there from a schematic standpoint than Deshaun Watson. They play the same style of football. Deshaun plays it at a higher level, but it's the same style of football. It's the same offense. You're not giving yourself an advantage by keeping this a mystery. All you're doing is pissing off your own fans when you do this. And this is a note not just for the Browns, for the entire NFL. It is driving us crazy how the lack of transparency has spread throughout these NFL teams. And it drives me even crazier when fans encourage it, because all you're doing is encouraging worse circumstances for yourself. Like, the team ain't going to get better because you don't know anything about it. Like, then these same fans are going to be furious when teams start going all the way, because you know what happens when teams don't want to be transparent. First is, okay, no video at practice. Then it is no reports at practice. So don't even report it. Now you don't know what's going on at practice. Now you as a fan is frustrated. Oh, you wanted transparency? Okay. Some of y'all might be extremists. We want transparency. We don't want transparency. That's going to be an advantage for the other team, right? For those people who think that that's the case. Okay, what you going to do now when they close down training camp? No more fans at training camp because we need to keep it all a secret. Not going to like it. You didn't like how the Browns switched to 8 days of practice when it used to be 20? You didn't like that. Nobody liked that. The lack of transparency is not good for the game. It's not good for the fans. It's not good for anybody. It doesn't make the teams any better. It's stupid. Be transparent about the things that you're expected to be transparent about. Again, nobody's asking you game plan questions. Nobody's asking you how many times you plan to throw. Nobody's asking you what type of game that you're game planning for, and you got to expect you to answer that honestly. Nobody's asking you anything critical to game day in these press conferences. So there's no reason to be this secretive. There really isn't. So all NFL teams get that L. The Browns are the most recent team to get that L. It's stupid. It's not helping the game, and it's not helping fans around it, me or you, We need to know more. And it's not like we need to know everything, but we do need to know basic stuff. This guy can't play. Why can't he play? When did we know he couldn't play? That's it. That's it. That's it. That's all we need to know. We don't need to know what treatment he's going through. We don't need to know what doctor he's going to. We don't need to know what medicine this person is subscribed to. We don't need that. We just need to know the basic stuff. And we're not even getting that. And that's not good. Because what we see today, that's just going to become normal, how this is handled, if we don't say anything about it. So yeah, that's just been completely frustrating with this team. The other thing that's been frustrating with this team has been the offensive line. And look, I think they've been blocking much better from a pass blocking standpoint. But the thing that is frustrating with them, and honestly, it's the run game. It's the run/screen game. That's what I'll adjust it to. It's the run/screen game that is the second most frustrating thing with this team. Well, that is the second thing that's frustrating me with this team, because they are this close so many times. Like, you saw them finally hit the big run with Jerome Ford at the beginning of the game, but then that toss play on 4th and 1, that would have been a touchdown, but Jerome Ford don't catch the pitch for whatever reason. So you get nothing. He fumbles the ball. You're back to square one. Frustrating. Screen plays, guys ahead of the field, guys holding. It's just frustrating. That's what I would describe the run game. It could be great. It could be pretty damn good. But instead, it's just very frustrating, because one thing always goes wrong that shouldn't. Basic stuff that they're messing up in this run game, in this screen game, and it's frustrating. Another thing that's frustrating is the inconsistency in receiver performance. I would say David Njoku's fine, and Amari Cooper, leave them alone. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, who had a good game last week. Let me put that in there. And whoever is between Cedric Tillman, David Bell, like whoever's supposed to be stepping up on that front, and Marquise Goodwin, it's just been inconsistent. Not reliable, not reliably open, not reliably winning versus man. Just, it's been frustrating. Now, you can make the argument that the quarterbacks aren't doing the greatest job in the world, and trust me, we're going to get to that. But it's just frustrating. I would add the on and off tackling that we get from the defense. Sometimes this is the greatest tackling defense you've ever seen in your life. Sometimes they can't make a single tackle. The Colts game and the Baltimore Ravens game are perfect examples of that. They have a really hot and cold streak of tackling. And it usually happens in games where they have a mental letdown. It's mental, and the tackling can be inconsistent at times. And I think that's the most frustrating thing about the defense, is the inconsistency at tackling. Now let's talk about the most frustrating thing on this team, and it has to do with the quarterback position. Deshaun Watson has been immensely frustrating and disappointing when he has played. PJ Walker has been frustrating at times, but it's hard to fault him because, let's be real. There's a level of frustration you just expect when you put in PJ Walker. No disrespect to him, but he knows he's not like a franchise quarterback, nor is that the expectation for him. It's been frustrating how they did DTR, and it's even more frustrating like how this whole thing has been handled from a coaching standpoint. So let me get started with Deshaun. It's been frustrating on many different levels. One, you just haven't seen enough great from him in his time in Cleveland, but you have seen a lot of god awful, right? Like, that's not good. That doesn't make anybody feel confident. You've seen some good games from Deshaun. Cincinnati this year, Tennessee this year. I thought those were all good games from Deshaun. I just don't think you've seen great from Deshaun, like spectacular. Like, you've seen flashes of it. A couple throws in that Tennessee game were great Deshaun. A couple throws in the Cincinnati game last year were great Deshaun. But you haven't seen consistent, great Deshaun Watson. You haven't seen a game of it. It's frustrating as hell. And it's also compounded upon because we just haven't seen much of Deshaun Watson at all. So he plays the first 3 games, gets hurt, It's been this whole frustrating, is he hurt, is he not thing from the Browns, how they've handled this. And then he gets back in and we're playing the same damn game. Now, I don't know how Kevin feels about this. I don't know how Andrew Berry feels about this. But a determination needs to be made from them if he can play through this or not. Because clearly it's them that have the hold up with it. I think if it was up to Deshaun, he'd be playing. Whether he'd be playing good or not, we have no idea. But he'd be playing. The signs are there that he'd rather play. Kevin and Andrew Berry, who are thinking about the long term on this, have to make a decision. Is this injury, with the medical staff, of course, is this injury something that, if he takes a bad hit, will turn into a disaster? If the answer to that question is yes, he doesn't need to play for the rest of the season. If the answer to that question is no, you gotta just let him rock. I don't care how hard you get hit. If he good, dog. Like, you just gotta let it rock at some point, right? Like, at some point, he's gonna get a bruise. He's gonna get a scrape. Like, you just gotta let him stand up, put some ointment on or whatever, and then get on with your day. And it seems like they want to live in this world where he can play, but he won't take a hit. And Deshaun Watson, much like Joe Burrow, is a quarterback who's going to take a million hits. And you see how the Bengals handled Joe Burrow when he came back after that calf got to a point to where he could take a couple hits. They just let him take hits, man, and just let him get through it. Now, Deshaun's not as young as Joe Burrow, but they're not that far apart. I think they're only like 2 years apart. But that's what it is. Either he can play through this injury without risking major surgery down the line, or he can't. I get it. It's his throwing shoulder. You want to play it safe. But if the risk is not if there is no significant risk of him needing major surgery if he plays through this injury, then he's got to play. You don't have the time to waste anymore. And what I mean by that is he still hasn't played a ton of football since 2020. He needs to play more football so he can get used to playing, and we can even see if he can be 2020 Deshaun Watson at this point. Because what we've seen has not been that. And how much of that is rust and how much of that is just regression? Real question. We don't know the answer because we ain't seen him play enough football. But that's the case that they need to make. Hey, do we got to sit him? Let him get surgery or something, or just not risk that this go bad until it's 100% fully healed. And if that's going to be after the season, that's going to be after the season. Just get rid of him for the whole year. If that's the case, that's the case. Hey, you live with it. You figure out what you want to do long term. Maybe you give DTR some snaps or some starts. Maybe you give PJ the rest of the season. I wouldn't mind going back to DTR, giving him a fresh shot at it. I think that there's a chance that DTR can be better than PJ right now. I think there's a significant chance of that. I wouldn't mind if you felt like this was a long-term thing going back to DTR. I know some people would be against it because he had such a bad first game, but he was put in a terrible situation. So I'm not going to let that be my full evaluation of him as that one awful game. Because, again, not put in the greatest situation in the world. But that is what's frustrating about this. A lot of us just want to find out what the hell is Deshaun Watson going to be. Is he going to be good? Is he going to be bad? Like, what? Like, we want a fair shot to look at this dude and see, hey, this is what we have. Whether he's good or not is secondary. We just want to know. But we've been guessing with Deshaun Watson since 2022. We've been guessing at quarterback whether we got the guy or not and asking this question since 2018. Like, think about how long of a 5 years it's been for Browns fans. You get Baker Mayfield, first overall pick. We're already going to be skeptical because he's a rookie. He comes in, he plays well. Okay, we on the train. He looks good at the end of the season. We ready to go. 2019 happens, setback. Now we don't know if he's good or not. 2020 happens, great season. We on that board. Then 2021 happens. Ooh, it was awful. All right, we got to move on from that. Trade for Deshaun Watson. Okay, he serves his suspension, comes back 6 games. Hey, man, it was rust. Okay, comes back in the offseason, has has a good first game, the iffy second game, bad, just flat out bad second game, and then a decent, good third game. Hurts his shoulder, and we've been here. It's been long. We've been asking this question about quarterback for 5 years. It's frustrating. We just want to know, do we got to move on and draft somebody in 2025 and play DTR in 2024? Like, is that what we're doing? Or are we going to be on the Deshaun Watson train? But we won't know if he doesn't play. And that's the most frustrating thing about it. And it's frustrating that we don't know who's going to play quarterback every week. That would also help things if the team knew who was going to play quarterback. But that's what's been frustrating about this team. My 5 most frustrating things. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.